The Pentagon just announcing that the last U.S. troops have withdrawn from Afghanistan.
Those images of people holding on to a U.S. Air Force carrier, I think that's something many Americans will, and people around the world, will not be able to get out of their minds.
خو ماته ګواښ وکړ چې تاسو نشئ کولی خپلې دندې ته دوام ورکړئ ځکه چې نظام بدلون کړی دی.
Hello again. So for those of you who joined recently, I'm Alessandra Galloni, I'm editor-in-chief at Reuters, and I am delighted to be joined here, as you saw in the video, by filmmaker Ibrahim Nash'at, whose brilliant documentary about the Taliban was shortlisted for an Oscar, by Shabnam Dawran, former anchor on Afghan State TV, now a presenter for Afghan International in London, and Saad Mohseni, the driving force behind Afghanistan's biggest media empire. Very quickly before we begin, I just wanted to set the scene with some numbers. Since August 2021, when the Taliban took over, to September of last year, 2024, according to the UN, there have been 336 documented instances of human rights violations against journalists, that's about one every 3 days, 256 instances of arbitrary arrest and detention, 130 instances of torture and ill treatment. Our beloved journalist, Danish Siddiqui, was killed by the Taliban, in fact, in 2021. So it was a particularly difficult time for us. I'd like to start with you, Shabnam. We saw in the video the chaos that was created by the withdrawal of US troops in 2021. When the Taliban took over, you tried to return to your work in your newsroom. Tell us what happened.
So, thank you so much. When the Taliban took over in Afghanistan was like an admire for me. I couldn't believe it for several days. I won't speak about the political side of their return, but for us, young people with hopes, with dreams, it was devastating shock. Even on August 14th, we still had hopes. I presented the news 10 p.m. bulletin and went home. Unaware of that, it would be the last night of our lives framed by humanity in Afghanistan. In just one night between August 14th and 15th, everything changed in an unimaginable way. On the morning of August 15th, I woke up, turned on my mobile data to see what's happening around the country.
And sorry, you'd done the evening show that night before,
I did, yeah.
10 p.m., and you went home.
And went home. But we still had hope to tomorrow gonna
like
normal. But as we were aware of the security situation in Afghanistan, but we had hope we're gonna come back, and I will present the news once again in Afghanistan national TV.
What happened?
But when on the morning of August 15th, I woke up, turned on my mobile data to see what's happening, I had received countless messages and one photo that broke my heart. A Talib fighter sitting on the same chair where I had presented the news the night before. That image just crushed me. Look at the changes just in one line, just with one date, 14th and 15th. As a young adult who had dreams, ambitions, purpose, it felt like my entire life was erased in a matter of hours. I lost my job, my future, my hopes, our government, and everything. The identity I had once worn with pride turned to the something I feared. My public presence, once the symbol of progress, had made me the clear target for the Taliban.
So what did you do? That very moment on the phone.
We just wait for the Taliban, what they try to say it. As they made promise on Doha, everything gonna be on their place, just the government change to the Republic, from the Republic to the Islamic Emirate. But that was not like that. On the 15th, they said everything gonna be on their place. Be calm and just deal with us. But I was waiting for them for 3 days, 15, 16, 17, 18th. On 18th, I tried because I was a young adult and as I was born in war, raised in war, and we live in war. As there was a government, but not pretty much security for us. But I decided I want to carry on the same life, presenting the news, attending my university, didn't wear anything someone else choose for me, the burqa, the hijab, or wearing a mask. I decided to went to my office. My whole family was there. I just stand in front of them and I said, Dad, I want to go to my office to present my news. Everybody just looked at me and they shocked. Shabnam, do you know? Since 3 days, the government is collapsed. Everything is changed. And do you want to go to your channel and present the news? The Taliban didn't allow you. We know their first government. We have the experience of their first government. They didn't allow you. I said, no. I learned in these 20 years to just speak out about my right. No one gonna give my rights. We have to fight for our right. And fortunately, my dad is an educated person, and he is an army pilot. And he said, okay, I respect your decision, let's go. I just covered myself and hold my card, my ID card, and I wear a long dress and went to office. When I reached the gate, I tried to enter. As my male colleague were allowed to, without any asking anything, they showed their card. They said, okay, you're employee here. With the RTA, they said, yes. Okay, go. I take it easy and try to enter the gate. But one of them just called me, excuse me, madam? I said, yes. He said, where do you want to go? I just bring down my mask and show my card. I said, this is Shabnam Khan Dawran. I am presenter. I'm sure you know me. So I want to go to my job and attend tonight's bulletin. He said, excuse me, you don't know? The government has changed. Go back and wait till our last announcement. And I said, why? You said everything gonna be on their place. So if everything is on their place, I must attend my job. He said, no. After a while, we argued, and I stand against them. But he said, you have to leave this place. If not, he pointed his gun on my head and he said, I would kill you, if not.
So that was the beginning of a big ordeal for you, but you did post something. You did post something. You took to your phone, and you did.
I obliged to just leave that place, and I went home, and I said, my dad says, Shabnam, I told you, the Taliban never change, never change. They're the same and even more dangerous from their first period. But I said, okay. I spoke with my colleagues and I just share my experience with them. They said, Shabnam, there is an option. I will explain you. If you accept the risk of death, carry on. If not, just stay like that. I said, okay, just tell me, I want to do something because I promised with my people, with myself, with my country, through journalism, through media, through presenting, I will be their voice.
And so you took to your phone?
Yeah, and I asked my sister to record the video.
And you did what you would have done in the news in your office, and you went. But that was the beginning of a lot of trouble for you. So we'll come back to that because we have some harrowing things that happened to you. Let me turn to Ibrahim. So different story. When the Taliban took control, you were watching events unfold from your home in Germany, and you decided to go back in. You decided to into Kabul just as others were leaving. Everybody remembers the exodus from Kabul. Tell us what you were thinking.
Thanks a lot for having me and for allowing me to come and talk here. It's a pleasure having met you and having met the rest of the speakers. When the situation began, I was watching the events of the airport, the very famous events where everybody is leaving the country, and there was something inside me that was kind of a calling to go. And relying on my background, that I have worked in journalism for so many years, I filmed with a lot of world leaders, I knew how to get to the fixers that are working with the Taliban. And within a very short phase, I was able to be inside Kabul. And what I arrived to a scene where Taliban are calling themselves Taliban 2.0. They are very open to the world at that time. They did the press conference, let some women speak, answered them nicely, and the international media was falling for that. And they started to leave the country. So I was seeing a lot of reporters leaving. The situation is very bad, a lot of people leaving. And it felt more like the journalism is going to disappear from Afghanistan, the international presence. And this is something that it felt more of a mission towards me, that there has to be told the real story of what's going on in Afghanistan, in whose hands this country was left. The West was there for 20 years, made all the promises that they made, left the country, and the media is disappearing, and nobody is watching what is going on in Afghanistan. And that became kind of our mission, to show the world in whose hands this country was left. As we go on to our mission, we started to discover the reality of what was left behind, all of the weapons that was left behind. And at the beginning, I expected Taliban would maximum find a couple of rifles, buried under the ground, rifles, ooh, and that's it.
Instead, you found $7 billion worth, yeah?
And what I found is that I found Taliban who are capable of fixing those things. Taliban who understand what propaganda is, Taliban who are capable of presenting themselves the way they are presenting themselves, negotiate, play politics. And I found the reality that leaves us with questioning, why did we actually go there? Why did the West decide to go there for 20 years? And what good did we do to Afghanistan? And what kind of responsibility do we carry on our shoulders nowadays, leaving the country to the situation where it is today, where Shabnam has to come here, although she was promised for all of her life that you're going to be taken care of, and she was left behind. And if she was able to come here and live in exile, there are so many Shabnams living still in Afghanistan that nobody's really thinking about them or talking about them, neither politically nor in media.
But of course you did, because you spent a year embedded with the Taliban as they came to power. You followed them as they fixed up this huge $7 billion haul of military hardware that had been left behind by the US. Tell us a little bit about what you saw and what you experienced.
So the movie is, it plays on BBC Storyville if anybody would like to watch it. It follows the Taliban journey as they find the weaponry left behind. They try to fix these weapons and then what they plan to do with these weapons. And it ends with this crazy parade that the Taliban do, presenting all of the American weaponry that was left behind, all of the Russian weaponry from the 90s that was left behind, and how they now claim to be a military power rather than just a couple of rather than a militia or a terrorist group. Now they are a military power that wants to run and have conversations. So
we're going to see a clip now, yeah? I think we have a clip.
اول میگه مبارزه یک فیلم مثل سریال جو میگن سریال خود خیالات است این واقعیت مثلا زندگی اجتماعی شما زندگی انفرادی خانوادگی شما زندگی هر تنظیمات نظامی رو میگیری چون بخشا رو میگیری
As you can attest, he's alive and well. Why did you call it Hollywoodgate?
For several reasons, but it's written Hollywoodgate as one word, because for me this is a scandal, the whole situation of what was going on in Afghanistan for the last 20 years. And the way it was presented to us as this is, yes, the world has the complete right to do and go to Afghanistan and do whatever they wanted to do to the country. And we all in the West, I live in Germany, we believe the narrative. I was going there, was skeptical about the narrative, and we think that the presence there was to help the people. That's one side of it. And the other side is that actually Taliban did not only inherit from the US all of the weapons that they were able to fix and was left behind, but they have inherited, which is the more important weapon, the power of propaganda. And I think Saad can tell us more about that, of how the Taliban today, regardless of the fact that Kandahar are fighting that, but the people in Kabul understand very well what propaganda is, and they are trying to play the game of media in a way to represent themselves as good people, and if not for the outside, but to suppress even more the people inside, so people have to just surrender and do whatever they want. And
you found they were very smart, even in using social media, TikTok, yeah?
Yeah, the Taliban were, in the beginning, now they banned it. Saad told me that they banned it, but in the beginning it was very common between them. They have their own macho Taliban style TikTok shows, kind of, where like they all walk and make scenes in front of TikTok, and they have put with me a security in the beginning that was watching me / reporting on me. And that security found out from the guys that were in Kabul about TikTok, so he was sliding on it very happy and stopped focusing on me. And then after one day his internet was off. I'm like, what's happening? He said, I only have 500 gigabytes for a month. I'm like, okay, no problem. Here, charge his phone 20 gigabytes, and for the rest of the time he was enjoying TikTok. So thanks, TikTok.
Saad, your media journey started 2 decades ago when you set up, first it was one single radio station in Kabul. From there, it blossomed into the biggest network of news and entertainment channels in Afghanistan. You created many new formats. In 2005, the wildly popular Afghan Star and Tolo News, which you both have featured on Tolo News. Tell us about what you achieved and how things have changed in those 2 decades.
Well, I think looking back, media, I think, was the most successful thing that happened in the country. Hundreds of TV stations and radio stations and thousands of young journalists, including Shabnam, who worked for us for a period, emerged from this new Afghanistan. And I think one of the things that for us was so important to remain in the country was that how do we help sustain these gains? And particularly, Afghanistan is the youngest country outside of sub-Saharan Africa. Median age is 18. 60% of the population is under the age of 20. And the population doubled between 2001 and 2021. So for us, I mean, we were caught by surprise in terms of how quickly the government collapsed. And then we made a decision to stay in the country. And the movement itself is not monolithic. They have different, varying degrees of how harsh the Taliban are. And you asked me before about the strange dance that, we are with the Taliban in terms of managing how we report on things. We've made sacrifices. There's no music. There are no soap operas. But we have entertainment programs. We have game shows. We have travel shows. We have cooking shows. And the news is, it's almost, I would say, 95% of what it was before. Now, we cover things perhaps with not as much fanfare as before, but we cover almost every single issue that's important to Afghanistan. Women's rights, human rights abuses, corruption, and so forth. Just on girls' education, last year we figured that we had done over 3,000 stories, including town hall programs, current affairs programs, and so forth. And the realization also that today we have no safety nets as a media organization. In the old days, media outlets would support us from the outside, or CPJ and so forth. We no longer have that safety net. But also, more importantly, it's this realization that the change has to come from within the country. Now, when we criticize the government's policy on education, we try to amplify the voices of Taliban members who are for girls' education, for example. And I think as much as the Taliban are attempting to change this new Afghanistan is also changing the Taliban 3.5 years on. And there's this sort of this tug of war between the pragmatists and the conservatives. And we are part of this, and of course the situation on the ground is a lot more nuanced than how it seems from the outside. For example, we're doing a lot of education programs, in particular, addressing the needs of our young girls who can't go to high school or can't go to university. We've done, I think, something like 1,000 hours of education content.
And I want to come back to that.
So we haven't given up.
I want to come back to that in a second, because you also speak to some of the things that are misunderstood about Afghanistan. But I do want to just quickly come back to you, because of course now you are here. It didn't work. They said you couldn't do it. You're now in exile here, and you got a shocking message last year from the Taliban, which I think we can put on the screen, which said, "When I arrest your family, you will come by your own feet to ask us to release your family, and don't share these words with anyone else. It will not be good for you. If you share, you will come and receive their dead body." And of course, the threats aren't empty, because here are the photos of what the Taliban did to your father, which I believe we also have. How does that make you feel about speaking out?
I'm sorry. As here, I began my working with the media, with Afghanistan International, and I had the honor to work with Tolo News, the place I get famous there.
He made you famous.
Yeah, exactly. I agreed. And I came here back. I began my work with Afghanistan International TV, and we start because Afghanistan have 2 national languages, Persian, Dari, and Pashto, and we start a Pashto program because Afghan people must have news on Pashto too. We start the program 1-hour talk show, and every 7 days of the week we do that show, and I'm presenting the 5 days.
Do you feel that you can speak openly?
Exactly. Working in exile have 2 types, like advantages, disadvantages. Advantages of the working in exile is this, like right now, I can speak out about, like, for 1,327 days, Afghan girls cannot go to school. But the Taliban exactly banned this in Afghanistan. They said, and they announced, if somebody speak inside Afghanistan about the Afghan girls' schools, we're gonna arrest them.
And you can say this here in a way you could not inside.
We're making the programs. Day by day, we speak out about to remind the people, look, these are not just days, these are their life.
And the disadvantages?
And disadvantages of working in exile, like we don't have access on the hot news on time. And because the Taliban ban everything, just they publish the news, they have benefits for the Taliban. Like they publish look, we work on this road, we made this, and that's it.
And
Nothing
so you don't
else.
get real
Yeah.
information, obviously, from on the ground in real time. Well, just because we don't have much time left, the two of you raised something that I think is very interesting for an audience, because we're talking about press freedoms, but really we're talking about how Afghanistan has changed. So what we'll do it the other way around. You know, so what do you think is the one thing that the world does not understand about Afghanistan?
Well, I think first and foremost, Afghanistan as a nation has changed dramatically over the last 25 years. And I think it's easy to forget Afghanistan.
Even since 2021? Since
2021, my concern is that the gains of the previous two decades will be lost. And that's why we continue to persist in terms of what we do. But I think the most important thing is that Afghanistan, there's still hope. You know, women continue to drive, they continue to work for NGOs, they continue to work for the government, they continue to work for private organizations, despite all the edicts, which are, you know, quite a contradiction in terms of what happens in practice and what happens in reality. I mean, my mom, who's always in Kabul, tells me dozens of stories of Taliban guys getting chased by women with their handbags. And in these urban centers in particular, people are resisting. They're unwilling to go back to the 1990s. Now, I think at some stage there'll be a convergence, edicts and implementation. Our hope is the more pragmatic types prevail. Girls go back to school. We have a more inclusive governing body. So I'm still hopeful, but I'm hopeful in the Afghan nation and the people of Afghanistan.
Ibrahim, last word to you, because we have to close.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
What is misunderstood?
I think what is really misunderstood that we look at Afghanistan as if it's something of the past, it's something far from us. But in reality, this is a result of the presence of the troops of the West, the NATO and the US, and it's a life example to see where we failed, and we should learn how not to avoid our mistakes and look back and realize what did we do wrong, what did we do trying to impose our own ideas on people, what did we do trying to think that we could end an ideology with a weapon while we are strengthening it, what did we do wrong so we can hopefully in the future, which doesn't really seem to be happening with Mr. Trump being with us and his friends taking all over the world, but we have to look at our mistakes and then we could really do something different than just conducting another war, because war begets war begets war.
On those words, I think we will end. Thank you very much to our panelists.